What if I told you that the most important line in From Season 4, Episode 8 wasn't a death, wasn't a monster, and wasn't even a revelation? It was a single question, a question asked by the man in yellow just before Tabitha's death. He looked directly at her and said, "Don't you remember?" At first, it seems like a simple line, but the more you think about it, the more terrifying it becomes, because that question changes everything. It suggests that the man in yellow already knew Tabitha, not from a few days ago, not from this timeline, but from somewhere much older, somewhere she is completely forgotten. Today we're diving deep into one of the wildest and potentially most accurate theories after episode 8. Who is the man in yellow? Why did he kill Tabitha? And what exactly was she supposed to remember? Let's begin. Think about the way the man in yellow speaks. The monsters usually smile. They manipulate. They hunt. They kill. But they rarely seem emotional. The man in yellow is different. When he speaks to Tabitha, there is something strange in his voice, something familiar, something almost personal. Instead of introducing himself, he asks if she remembers him. That means he believes they have met before. Not maybe, not possibly, definitely. The question itself confirms it. The real mystery is not whether he knows Tabitha. The mystery is why Tabitha doesn't know him. One theory is that Tabitha has been in the town before, not physically, but spiritually. Imagine that From is built around a repeating cycle, a cycle that has existed for hundreds of years. People arrive, people suffer, people die, the cycle resets. Then it begins again. The faces change, the names change, but certain souls keep returning. What if Tabitha is one of those souls? What if she has lived through this nightmare before, again and again and again, each time forgetting everything, while the man in yellow remembers every single cycle? Imagine watching someone you know return hundreds of times, watching them forget who they are, watching them forget who you are. Eventually you would ask the same question, "Don't you remember?" But what if the connection goes even deeper? What if the man in yellow wasn't just someone Tabitha met before? What if he was someone she loved? Think about it. The sadness in his expression, the disappointment, the frustration. It doesn't feel like a monster looking at prey. It feels like a person looking at someone who abandoned them, someone they lost long ago. Imagine that centuries ago, before the curse, before the monsters, before the town became what it is today. Tabitha and the man in yellow were connected. Maybe husband and wife, maybe brother and sister, maybe father and daughter, maybe something even more important. Then something terrible happened. The town trapped one of them. The other escaped. Time passed. Memories disappeared. Lives ended. New lives began. But the man in yellow remained, waiting, watching, remembering. And when Tabitha returned, he immediately recognized her, even though she couldn't recognize him. Now let's talk about another possibility. What if the man in yellow isn't actually the main villain? What if he's the first victim? The first person ever trapped in the town. The first person cursed. The first person transformed by whatever force controls this place. Think about how different he is from the other monsters. He's intelligent. He's calm. He's aware. He seems to understand things nobody else understands. Maybe that's because he's been here since the very beginning. Imagine being trapped for centuries, watching countless people arrive, watching countless people die, watching the same tragedy repeat over and over. Anyone would eventually change. Anyone would eventually become something else. Maybe the man in yellow wasn't born a monster. Maybe the town turned him into one. But this brings us to the biggest question. Why did he kill Tabitha? If he knows her, if he remembers her, why kill her? The answer might be more shocking than anything we've seen so far. What if death and From isn't really death? What if dying is part of the process, part of the cycle, part of the escape? Maybe the man in yellow understands how the town works. Maybe he knows something the others don't. Maybe he knows that Tabitha's death is necessary to unlock memories, necessary to move the story forward, necessary to finally break the cycle. If that's true, then what looked like murder could actually have been a sacrifice, a painful one, but a necessary one. And now we arrive at the craziest theory of all. What if the entire town exists inside a loop? A repeating story, a never-ending cycle. Every generation has its own versions of the same people, The same roles, the same events, the same tragedies. Tabitha returns, the children return, the monsters return. Everyone forgets, except one person. The man in yellow.